The presentation I'm going to do for you today is based on the experience that I and my colleagues have built up over the last 3-4 years in working with about 160 web shops that we have helped to internationalize. And the experience is not just the consulting part, the advising part, but it is also actually hands-on working with those clients. So we're involved in the management of over 160 web shops. There is an opportunity for questions in the end, but also, as Melanie said, we can do one-to-ones in the end, in the breakout sessions there. The other thing I wanted to mention to you, if you're interested, I have a country report here for you. It's an infographics on the Netherlands specifically. I have it for other countries, but this is specifically for the Netherlands. 20 pages of background information, and the slides will be available outlining the approach, okay? So that's where we are today. And let me see. Is there any people in the audience who has a web shop already in the UK? So that's show of, okay, that's okay. And how many of you sell overseas already? Everybody already, perfect, okay. Well, I'm looking forward to maybe sharing some of your thoughts and experiences later, but let me get started on this now. It's a step-by-step approach and some practical guides also. And this is a very basic approach that you'll get in any marketing class, any business school you do this. So I will step through this. It's simple, it's basic, but I will have the practical details to fill in later. 4 steps: research, decide, then the planning, then the design and the build, then the launch, the management, and then the expansion, with which I really mean other countries. Now today I will really focus on the first 2. Because if you have a web shop here, you're already successful. You know how to manage a web shop reasonably well, I would hope and I think. So this is really about how do you set it up, what are the things that are different in the Netherlands. Okay? Specifically, I will talk about 3 things for this first step. I will talk about country selection, because it's just an interesting information I have for you here. The other one is specific information for the Dutch online market. And the third part is, okay, how do you choose your route to market? There are many different ways of doing that. You can go through a marketplace, you can service it from the UK, you can set up your own website. And I will talk a little bit about, you know, when would you choose which one, etc. What are the considerations? Okay, the next one is, I think, a very interesting slide. When you choose which country to go for and to confirm that the Netherlands is actually interesting or not, is you need to do some market research. There's nothing new in that. But some of the research we have done, I wanted to share with you. And you see some slides here. Here are all the countries. We did this research for the Kenwood blender, but that's not all that relevant. But the information that we find is really useful to start looking at is market prices. And market prices for your products won't be the same per country. It's just not the case. The other thing is, if you look at the cost of marketing, that's hard to assess. But if you look at a proxy for that, which is basically the cost of a Google AdWord click for a relevant localized keyword, that's what we have done here. You see some staggering differences, right? So this is the cost per click on a relevant keyword in that country. So this basically indicates roughly, it gives you a bit of an idea of a margin. So if you look at different countries, the Netherlands is quite interesting. Where you don't want to go is in Finland or Sweden, because the margins seem to be very, very tight there. Funnily enough, the UK is doing okay for this product also. Yeah? This here gives you the search volumes for those keywords. So in one go, you get some idea about profitability indication. It's not more than an indication, but it's one of the things we recommend you really look at. Okay, so let's say we have done our homework. We say, okay, we're going to go to the Netherlands, guys. Here is some basic information for the Netherlands. Now, I won't bore you with all of those. I selected the key points already. And just to point out a few things. If you look at income per capita, you will see the Netherlands has a higher people in the Netherlands have a higher purchasing power on average than guys in the UK. So there's the demand for luxury goods, etc. You don't need to worry about purchasing power. The other thing is something where really the UK is very, very different from any other country in Europe. Because in the UK, people spend more online than in any other country. It's probably the second highest, bar the United States and maybe 1 or 2 other countries. The UK is a massive online market. It's competitive, it's mature, but If I say mature, I have to check myself because that is not the case. It continues to grow. Look at the figure here. Annual growth is still 17%. On the continent, in the Netherlands, growth is still 10%. So where do you find a retail or another market that is growing with 10% or more? It has to be online if you go overseas. You cannot ignore it. The other thing to point out here is where is the Netherlands different from the UK? Social networking, social media is bigger in the Netherlands than in the UK. Smartphones, tablet usage. Sorry, smartphones are more used in the UK, but tablet ownership and ordering by tablet is higher in the Netherlands. I think those are some of the key things that I wanted to point out. So you have a sense, a flavor of the Netherlands. And of course, whatever product you sell, you'll have to do some competitor analysis, etc., etc. Okay. The next thing in your planning phase I wanted to talk about is, okay, what are your different routes to market? Yeah, and I'm not so sure this is new, but at the same time, it is important, and it's a good step over to my next slides. Of course, you can open up your UK web shop for orders from the Netherlands. So you provide checkout details, PayPal or whatever you want to use, telephone numbers for queries, and you make sure that delivery cost is clearly indicated. One thing to consider is if you specifically want the Netherlands, is there a scope for a Dutch landing page to provide at least the basic information in Dutch? The next one is marketplaces. Now the Netherlands is funny because there's only one marketplace. It's not Amazon, it's not eBay. It's Bol. Bol.com is the only, one and only, really marketplace like we know it. Amazon is available, but only for ebooks. There is, eBay does exist, but they had a tough time getting into the Dutch market, so they actually bought the local competitor, which is Marktplaats. However, that's an advertising site, and you click through to your website that you need to have in the country. Okay? And you cannot check out on Marktplaats. The other option is, of course, to have your own branded website. And today, I'll be focusing most of my discussions around this. I will have one slide before this, which is on the bol.com, because I know one of the people in the room is interested. Mark, I think you were interested in that. So a little bit about bol.com. It's a marketplace like any other. The layout is not all that different. 4 million active customers. You can read it for yourself. The fixed fee is just under €1, 15% commission. And if you're willing to pay 15% commission, that's not too bad. They don't have fulfillment. Now here's the trick. If you want to go on bol.com, you need a local address, you need local BTW, which is the equivalent to VAT, you need a local bank, etc. So that's a tricky thing to achieve. Now, it's not impossible. You can do that in the Netherlands. But the other thing you can, of course, consider is go through an intermediary that does it for you and basically use their facilities. That's absolutely not impossible. If you want some names for that, just let me know and I can help you. No, not the distributor, service provider that just provides those services. It could be a distributor, but there are other options also. People do this for a living. Yeah? Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, this is on bol.com. Any more questions about it? I'm happy to tackle later. Now, this is something I want to focus on today. This is the third route to market, which is really setting up your own website, your own web shop, your own website. It's not as difficult as you think it is, but you do really need to know how, and I'm going to try to get you the basic information on this, okay? Doing this, there are two examples here. This is a UK company selling handicraft for children. I never thought you would actually be able to make money in that, but they have a UK website, a call center of 15 people, and they took a very basic approach. They went over to the Netherlands, they went over to France, they went to Germany first to try that out there, step by step, and they're now going to do Poland, they're now going to do Italy, Spain, and Sweden. It works for them. They first operating profit they made in month 3, and their break even they achieved already in the first year per country, which is pretty good going, I think. This one is an example of a French company. I think we have the UKTI guy for France in here. This is the one that I was talking about. They started up, they decided, okay, I want to go internationally. I think they decided that in August the year before, so that's about 18 months ago. And they were able to put 3 websites up in 3 countries and all the logistics in place in 3 months' time. That was really, really tough work, but they're able to do that. And again, that seems to be a magical number, but in the 3rd month, they started making operating profit, and they have broken even already after 1 year. And they're doing very well. 30% of their volume this year is going to come from international sites. Yeah? So you need to know how to do this. The keyword is localization, localization, and localization. However, there is a trick here. If you want to localize everything for the full 100% from the start, that can be pretty expensive. So what is the reasonable approach to take? How do you try this out? Who develop this? How do you manage your risk? Some of that what I'm going to talk about here is just about the what and the how in localization. Okay? Okay, some practical tips. There will be 15 of those today. The first one is language. Dutch people take English pretty well. They never lose their accent, as you can hear, but they can make themselves understood and understand what people are saying here. However, there is no equivalent, there is no substitute for a fully localized, a fully translated website. Don't try it, don't do it. People notice that and they immediately know that's not a Dutch website, so it's not fully localized, but it's an English website doing the best to be local. You need to have a fully localized website. If you can't afford the whole thing, just do part. Don't take the 100 products, just take 10 products, but don't compromise on the translation. It also makes a difference for you in terms of customer service costs, because you get all the telephone calls to deal with if the customer is not clear. So that's that. Customer service, put a local telephone number on there, a local address. You'll be surprised how much a difference that makes in terms of conversion. Think about it for yourself. If you have a foreign telephone number for a query, who is going to phone that number? Because you don't know how much it's going to cost you. You don't know, and the local address says, okay, I can send it back to the UK in country rather than having shipped it overseas. So all of those things are playing in the mind of the customer, and it really does make a massive difference in conversion. You need to know, I didn't realize it specifically, but Amex found it out, American Express. They did some research about customer service attitudes, and apparently the Netherlands is one of the toughest markets to get it right, because they really are impatient. They like to be treated nicely, but efficiency is highly rated by Dutch customers. How do you keep the cost under control? Here are 2 examples. Really work on your frequently asked question page, and when calls come in, emails come in, keep track of what they are about and update your frequently asked pages, okay? Okay, the next one is some basic information about the finances and the regulations. And let me start at the bottom for a change. Because of the EU regulations, the privacy considerations, return regulations are very similar. So there's not much to say there. It's very similar. There are some very small differences, but the most important differences really are in terms of payment methods. In the UK, everybody pays with a credit or debit card. In the Netherlands, most people actually pay with a product called Ideal. It's a conglomerate of banks have come together. They've set up a payment method which is basically using your banking system online. But it's not the same as credit or debit card, although it is deducted directly. So it comes to your bank account straight away once a customer orders, which is, I think, a helpful thing to know. The VAT, most of you will know it if you're handling trading overseas, but once you start hitting a threshold in sales, you need to go for a local VAT number. You can get it in different places, but you know that now. Logistics, it's about twice as expensive, roughly, to send something to the Netherlands, to Belgium, to France, to Germany. That doesn't have to be the case, but it is for you. You can find it out yourself. Roughly, it's about twice as expensive. Here is one thing. A very practical thing to consider is which courier are you choosing. Check out whether they deliver directly to the end customer or whether they hand it over to another party. Because if they do that, things get lost. There's a problem with tracking numbers, etc. Make sure that they do have tracking numbers. And make sure that the end customer, let's say in this case in the Netherlands, and you're dealing, let's say, with DHL, the DHL in the Netherlands has a telephone number and an email inquiry line that customers can contact. Because if they can't contact DHL, they will contact you. Return differences, they are not as big anymore as they used to be across Europe, again, because of the EU regulations. Historically, the Netherlands has a slightly higher return rate than in the UK, so be mindful of that. One comment about return logistics. if you work with DHL or with another fulfillment partner, they are geared up for large volumes. They don't always handle return products very well, so you can consider doing that with a different partner. Okay, a question about financial calculations. I'm surprised most of the time how little people know about the order value, the average order value, and what is more important, the average order profit you make. What's the profit you make per order? So spend some time in it just takes really literally one night and you have that information together. Find out what your break-even product, your break-even volume is for selling overseas. And there are other drivers of your profitability, return percentage, repeat purchase, etc. You will never get it right. You can never forecast it, but if you set a benchmark for yourself, you can measure. And that will really help you in managing it effectively going forward. Okay, here are a few more conversion killers and conversion improvers. I'll let you clear this slide just for yourself for a moment. Of those, the most important part is the currency. Okay. Marketing. This is an easy slide to clear, to be honest, because marketing in the Netherlands is not all that different from marketing in the UK. You start off with, if you want to generate leads to your website quickly, you will have to go to AdWords. There's no way around that. But build up your website, the notoriety, the credibility of your website by SEO activities. Social media in the Netherlands is important. This is important on the whole continent, not just in the Netherlands. Here is where the UK is an exception, really. Price comparators in the UK are not as important as on the continent. Certainly in the Netherlands, price comparators are important. They don't have shops like Amazon, etc. And price comparators are a very relevant marketing tool for you in that country. Contact email addresses, collect email addresses. Offline marketing can be very effective also. An article in a magazine, if you have a product with a real USP, people who want to print in magazines. There will be editorials that are available, and that can be a very effective way of generating traffic to your website also. So think about the offline activities also. But in general, if you know how to market in the UK, you only have to tweak it a little bit in the Netherlands, you'll be okay. Okay, the next slide is one of the most important slides I have, which is this. Okay. You want to go to the Netherlands, or any other country for that matter. You know that you have different options. You can service the market using your UK web shop. You can service the market through going through marketplaces. Even in the Netherlands that is possible. However, in the Netherlands specifically, but also in other countries, there are options to really set up a localized website. Now, how do you set up a localized website? How do you keep that manageable? Where do you go for the information? Okay. So how do you adapt your business model, the options, the questions, and some of the answers? The first one, of course, is you replicate your team in the UK. You hire a distribution person, a marketing person, customer service person. That's 3-4 people. You hire them and set up in the UK. That's fairly risky. It's high risk. It's a high fixed cost that you're building in straight away. The other possibility is that you run everything from the UK. But then you don't localize effectively. That's pretty impossible. And how do you get your local knowledge? So you're kind of ending up with having to consider using local partners. Now, local partners you can use for logistics. Just ask your local supplier, your UK supplier. They will have an idea which supplier for logistics you can go to. The same for payment methods. Your local supplier, and they might be able to help you already with the ideal solution in the Netherlands. VAT and translations, most people know where to go for those. But where do you go for customer service? Where do you go for website localization? How do you really localize your website effectively? And even to some extent for marketing. Where do you go to do that effectively? And there's a little bit of searching that you have to do there. But if you need some names, then come to me afterwards. Because you can start seeing now service companies that do this, that do that. And actually companies also that start to combine those services now specifically to help other companies localize in their marketplace. Yeah. The question, of course, that is relevant, if you do this for the Netherlands this way, and you have to replicate that again for all of the other countries, how are you going to keep that manageable? Often what I see is that the managing director comes and says, listen, this is what we need to do, and he manages it himself or herself, but that's a massive drain on the person's time. So is there another way of doing it? And again, one of the things you start seeing now is service providers, maybe distributed networks, but specifically service providers are emerging in the different countries and across Europe that are specifically tailoring to those combination of services. There are not many, but if you need them, let me know. But ideally what you want, it would be great if you have one person that helps you with all of this in a country, and it would even be better if you have one person doing this for all of you that you can work with across 4 or 5 countries. Okay, and those possibilities are there now. Okay, before we open up for questions for us, I have 3 questions for you. Does your brand travel internationally? You need to do some research. But if anything goes wrong with international expansion, in my experience, it is that people underestimate the USPs. You know, they think 5 years ago, I started with my product in the UK. Okay, but that's 5 years ago. That doesn't mean that that is still a unique selling point. You might still be selling well in the UK, but it might just be a volume advantage that you have. So, do you have a unique selling point? Is it unique? Is there a demand for it? Can you sell it? Are people interested in it? And the other thing is, can you actually make it into a clear point? Can you articulate it? And normally I would say one USP is not sufficient, especially if it's price. Then people can copy price very quickly. So have a good look at what competitors are doing and whether your USP is a real USP that is sustainable. The other one is, I've talked a little bit about the cost impact, the profit potential, the revenue potential of the different opportunities. How will that impact your business case? And if you go to different countries, whether that goes through marketplaces or through your own website, how do you keep it manageable? What is the business model? How are you going to go and adapt your business model? Yeah? Okay. Those are the things that I wanted to talk about.